people are still debating whether or not Anthony Joshua quit in the first fight with Andy Ruiz. In The Gloves Are Off, Ruiz tells AJ, I think you did quit. AJ kind of shrugs it off. And then Ruiz almost starts to agree with AJ. I mean, it's a little ambiguous. Not just AJ's own answer, but also Ruiz's response to AJ's answer. At the end of the day, nobody knows for sure whether AJ quit or didn't quit other than AJ himself. Because he didn't definitively say, no, I don't want to continue. He didn't stay on the floor because he could have done that. He could have taken a knee and not got up, like Kell Brook did against Errol Spence. Or when he did get up and the ref asked him, do you want to continue? He could have shook his head and said no, like Chad Dawson did against Andre Ward. He could have turned his back like Roberto Duran and said no mas. He didn't do any of that. He actually responded to all the referee's instructions. In fact, if you go to this video right here on AJ's YouTube channel, the video is called Take It In and Apply It. Go to the 12-minute, let's say 54 mark. And AJ is literally talking you through the end of the fight, what was going through his head in that moment. And he says that when he went to the corner, and you can see this, a lot of people miss it. When he goes to the corner, he actually walks forward towards the referee. The referee then pushes him back into the corner. And he says at that moment, he was thinking, okay, the ref is pushing me back. Let me just chill here. Maybe he's going to go get my gum shield or something. The referee then asks him, do you want to continue? AJ says yes, and the ref waves it off. Now, clearly the referee was either looking at AJ's body language and thought to himself, okay, you're nodding your head and you're responding to my instructions, but you're not doing it enthusiastically enough. Therefore, you don't really want to continue, or you're out of it. You know, your head is still buzzing and you don't have the ability to respond in the way that I want you to respond. Because the referee's just not looking for you to, answer his questions and say yes. He's looking for the way that you're saying yes. He's looking at your body language. He's looking into your eyes. Do you appear present, or are you spaced out? That's what the ref is looking for. And he made a judgment that in that moment, either AJ didn't want to continue, or he wasn't in any kind of fit state to continue. And as I say, the only person who knows whether they were really trying to continue or not, or whether they were deliberately trying to prompt the referee to stop it, the only person who knows is AJ. You don't know. Anyone claiming, oh, I know for certain that he quit. No, you don't. It's your interpretation. Okay, but those of you who are still debating it, I would urge you to go to this video, to the, where we at? Yeah, 12-minute 55 mark. Go to the video and have a look at AJ's explanation of what was going through his head during that moment. Spitting his gum shield out, I mean, that's a veteran move. Loads of fighters do that to gain extra time to recover. That's not indicative of quitting. You spit a gum shield out because you want extra time. Because once you get up, your gum shield has to then be washed out and you'll often get more than the 10 seconds. Yeah, fighters sometimes do it during the round, not even just after, they've been knocked down. Sometimes when they're on their feet, but they've been hurt, they'll spit the gum shield out. So it's a veteran tactic. That is not indicative of quitting. Ultimately, as I say, only AJ knows for sure. I'm not telling you that I know for sure one way or the other. I suspect that he actually didn't quit, but who knows? It's actually irrelevant because the rematch is taking place not this weekend, but next weekend. And we're going to find out what AJ's made of then. So those of you who think he's a quitter, those of you who think he's mentally weak, we'll see. And same for those of you who think he's mentally strong. I mean, we'll find out exactly how strong he is. I mean, look, he's obviously mentally stronger than the average person. And he's mentally stronger than most boxers because he's already dealt with an unbelievable amount of pressure earlier on in his career. I mean, the Klitschko fight was, 18th or 19th fight at Wembley? Most professionals with as little experience as AJ had in that Klitschko fight, they would have fallen to pieces. Like psychologically, the fact he's held it together under all this pressure he's been under in the UK for years shows a certain level of mental strength. But of course, there are other levels of strength mentally. And can he tick those boxes? Because he's going to have to prove that he can deal with the demons of the first fight, deal with a more confident opponent, deal with self-doubt, deal with, doubts about his team, whether they're the right people to get him through this situation. This is a much more psychologically, mentally and probably emotionally difficult fight before the opening bell than the first fight was. So this is a real test of AJ's character. This would be a test of any fighter's character, because it's not just coming back and having an immediate rematch with a guy who stopped you, who dropped you 4 times and humiliated you, beat you up. No, it's not just that. It's doing that in front of the whole world on a massive stage when there's so much at stake. The pressure is incredible. So we'll see will he break? Will he crack psychologically? Maybe he will. And of course, people are looking into the gloves are off and they're saying, oh, the way he responded to this question shows that he's cracking mentally. The fact that he said this, the fact that he said that. Again, the proof is in the pudding. Anthony Joshua is a very cerebral kind of character. He's not an impulsive person. So a guy like a Deontay Wilder or a Tyson Fury, they probably would have responded differently to some of the questions that were asked during the gloves are off, or some of the comments that Andy Ruiz made. They probably would have responded differently, particularly Wilder, even more so than Fury, because Wilder's very impulsive, very emotional. AJ is more of a thoughtful guy who'll sit back and, contemplate, and he's a much deeper thinker than somebody like Deontay Wilder, Now, with that being said, there's an article, and again, this is quoting from The Gloves Are Off. Interesting that Sky, who originally posted this article, took it down not long after posting it. The headline was, Anthony Joshua was screaming about weaknesses. So this is the page where the original Sky article was. They took it down. Now, the fact they took it down, to me, is more interesting and insightful than what the article actually says. Because if AJ's team are fully confident in him, and he's fully confident in himself, then why would they care about an article like this? Enough to request that it's taken down. What's that all about? Is that an insight into the mental fragility of Team AJ? The fact that they wanted something like this taken down? They don't want, Andy Ruiz getting a psychological boost from seeing that AJ's screaming about weakness. At the end of the day, Andy Ruiz was sat across the table from him when that gloves are off. So he knows exactly what AJ said and what context he said it in. So yeah, I just find it interesting that they decided to take the article down. But anyway, one of the things that AJ said in the gloves are off is that I'm going to quote it word for word. It says here, I've been screaming this for 2 years in my gym. I keep going this way, I'm going to end up getting beat soon. So he has been voicing his concerns to his team that there are certain elements of his game which haven't been worked on, that need to be worked on. And if they don't get addressed, he's going to end up losing. The fact that this guy has been contemplating losing for the past 2 years in training camp, people are going to look at that and say, well, that's a sign of weakness. Because a guy like Deontay Wilder, he comes out with stuff like, I never even imagined I could lose. I'm a king. AJ has the mentality of a loser. If you truly believe in yourself, you would never even imagine you could lose. And I get that. Many great fighters have that kind of mentality. They literally believe they're invincible. And if they train hard and, cross all the T's and dot all the I's, they can't lose. But other fighters are more, some would say, realistic than that. Because other fighters look at it and say, okay, yeah, I'm good. I've achieved so much. I've become a champion. But most of the greatest fighters of all time have lost. So therefore, why would I be exempt? And there's 2 ways to look at that, okay? On one hand, you could say a fighter who expects to lose at some point when they get into a tough situation in the ring, they might resign themselves to defeat mentally because they already believed it was going to happen someday anyway. Whereas a fighter who truly in their heart believes they can't lose, they're going to fight that extra bit harder because they believe that as long as they keep pushing, they're going to win in the end, irrespective of how tough it is in the moment, you know? So that's an interesting thing to contemplate. But the flip side of having this invincible mentality where you believe you can't lose, the flip side of that is statistically you probably are going to lose. No matter how confident you are and how much you don't believe you're going to lose, statistically you probably are going to lose. All right, Muhammad Ali lost, Sugar Ray Robinson, most of the greatest fighters of all time, they lost. So what happens to a person psychologically when they truly in their heart of hearts believe that they would never lose? What happens to them when they do lose? It's more devastating to them than it is to somebody who believed they were going to lose eventually anyway. You understand what I'm saying? A good example would be Prince Nassim. He, in several interviews, I think even in the ring, came out and said that God would never allow him to lose. That's how confident, some would say arrogant, Prince Nassim was in his own ability. He believed that he'd been ordained by the Almighty himself to be an undefeated boxer for his whole career. Okay? And so when he lost, it wasn't just a loss. It shattered his whole self-image. Everything he believed about himself was shattered in that Barrera fight. Psychologically, that it was so devastating to him because he never believed that he could actually lose. You know? So it might be more difficult for a guy like that to recover from a loss than a guy who has already contemplated defeat before. So there's two sides to it, you know? And ultimately the proof is in the pudding. So we'll see in this AJ Ruiz rematch where AJ's at psychologically, because this is a way, way tougher test for AJ mentally than the first fight was. Way tougher. And look, AJ's shown that he's got a certain level of mental strength to get to the position he's in the first place. The amount of pressure that AJ was under in the UK, the expectations of a nation, going in there against Klitschko when he was so inexperienced. What was it, his 18th or 19th fight? 90,000 people? He only had like 40 amateur fights. He's had less than 20 pro fights. And there's all that expectation on his shoulder against Klitschko, a man so experienced. Like, for him to be able to deal with all that and not crumble, incredible. But there are levels of mental strength even above where AJ has been so far, what he's displayed so far. There are levels of mental strength above that. Okay? Can he tick those boxes? We'll see. All of the questions about AJ's heart, all of the questions about his mental strength, all of the questions about his chin are going to be answered on December 7th. It's fascinating. So, another thing I want to talk about here, relating to AJ's training situation, because I've been saying for a very long time that I think AJ needs a new trainer. I've been saying this well over a year. So for those of you who are newer subscribers or new viewers, don't think that I'm one of these reactionary people who just wants AJ to fire Robert McCracken because he lost to Andy Ruiz. Whereas prior to the Ruiz fight, I wasn't saying anything. No, that's not me. I have been saying on video for well over a year that AJ needs to get rid of Robert McCracken, long before he lost to Andy Ruiz. Yeah, I saw certain things in AJ's style which weren't getting addressed, certain improvements which weren't happening, and I also saw a confusion in his style, which made sense when it was finally revealed that AJ has had an individual, I forget the guy's name, he has a Spanish name, an individual in his team who has been working with him alongside Rob McCracken. And there seems to be a conflict of styles there. McCracken teaching him one style and a particular technique, and this other individual with a Spanish name teaching him different technique. Now, before I even knew that there were two different people teaching him in his camp, I noted that there was a clash of styles, a conflict of styles in that Povetkin fight. I noticed it then. That wasn't the normal AJ we usually see. He was fighting with his hands down, his left arm down against Povetkin. He was, doing things I'd never seen him do before. And that to me showed that he was working with somebody other than McCracken. Okay? And I stand by what I've been saying for well over a year. I think the best move for AJ would just be to get rid of McCracken. I understand why he's retained him for this fight, because you don't want to, just kick everybody out and scrap everything when you've only got 6 months. You don't want to do that. If you're going to bring a whole new team in and a new trainer completely, you're going to want several fights to acclimatize to what that new trainer's teaching you. You can't just jump straight back into a very high pressure situation. The guy who just stopped you, the guy who humiliated you. And AJ knows that because he said so himself. He said, look, there's not enough time for me to have a complete overhaul of the team and a complete overhaul of my style. So we're going to have to make do with what we have at the moment. But long term, I think there needs to be an overhaul. And if there isn't an overhaul of AJ's team, then he's probably going to need another loss. Maybe he'll get this other loss next weekend, on December 7th. Because I feel as though if AJ don't completely overhaul his team, it has to get worse before it's going to get better. Yeah, this is what happens with fighters. And I've been saying this for years about many fighters, but particularly about AJ. They always end up waiting until they lose before they change their trainer. You could have avoided these losses if you would have done the right thing in the first place. So when AJ is talking about loyalty, as far as Robert McCracken, because McCracken is more to him than just a trainer. McCracken is a mentor. McCracken is an advisor, etc., because he was a professional fighter himself, so he knows the game from a business perspective, and he's stuck by him, right? So I get it. And Rob McCracken's obviously making a lot of money being with AJ. So I get all that. But as a fighter, you have to be selfish. You have to be. You've only got a small window of opportunity within which to not only make life-changing sums of money, but within which to make the most out of your own ability. You have to be selfish. So if it was up to me, I'm going to sound like John Fury here, but a lot of them, they'd all be out. Get rid of the whole team. Bring completely new people in, boxing people. People who have trained heavyweights. People who have taught a style which I personally think would be more suited to AJ than what McCracken has taught him. It's not to say McCracken is rubbish, but there's no one-size-fits-all trainer for everybody. So that's my take on what I think needs to happen going forward. But first of all, he has to get past December 7th and pull out a victory, which he may not. He's a very narrow favorite with the bookmakers, very narrow. Should he be favorite at all? Given the fact he lost first time conclusively, given the fact there's only been 6 months between the first fight and the rematch, can he recover psychologically? Maybe Ruiz should be the favorite. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. But this video right here, before I finish, is Tyson Fury on the True Geordie podcast. And he's asked about the AJ Ruiz fight. He thinks AJ is going to lose again. He just thinks Ruiz has got his number, that Ruiz is his bogeyman, or boogeyman, as you guys in the United States call it. That's what he thinks Ruiz is to AJ. Ruiz just has that style that AJ will never be able to defeat. Or at the very least, AJ will always have trouble with. Yeah, many fighters just have a particular opponent who they just can't deal with. Will Ruiz be that for AJ? We'll see. But that's one thing that Tyson Fury says. And he also says that all of this high-tech training which Anthony Joshua's been doing and the high-tech nutrition is all overrated. And you guys know I agree with that. I think that all the weight training Resistance, all that stuff is overrated. In fact, it can be detrimental to a lot of fighters. I think that the nutrition stuff, particularly for heavyweights, a lot of the time is overrated. Listening to a nutritionist rather than listening to your own body. Yeah, I'm not saying don't try some of these diets the nutritionists are recommending, but the ultimate judge needs to be you, not a nutritionist to tell you what this food is supposed to do for your body. No, the ultimate judge is you. How do you actually feel? You might feel better training on, whatever, your mom's food than you are on the sports scientist food. So make your own mind up about that. And so I agree with Tyson Fury on that level, because Andy Ruiz, of course, came in. He can't run as fast as AJ. He can't jump as high. He can't lift as much. He can't break all the records that AJ breaks on the treadmill or in a Versa climber or all these different pieces of equipment. No, AJ is going to beat Andy Ruiz in just about everything in a fitness gym. But boxing is not just purely an aerobic endeavor. No. A guy could be a 10 times superior athlete to you, but if you hit him on the chin hard enough, he's going to go to sleep. So all of that, aerobic superiority, it's not going to help him once he gets hit on the chin, is it? For the most part. So that's a good point that Tyson Fury makes. But ultimately, as I say, we're going to find out on December 7th in Saudi Arabia. Some fighters grow stronger from humiliating and devastating losses, but some fighters are destroyed by it. And there have been better fighters than AJ, or fighters who have been more highly regarded than AJ, let me just say that, who have been ruined by one defeat. An example might be Donald Curry. Donald Curry was widely regarded as the number one pound-for-pound fighter in boxing. Once he lost to Lloyd Honeyghan, he was never quite the same again. He did come back and, win and whatever, but he also suffered several more losses. He was never the same again. Lloyd Honeyghan after that, Donald Curry after the Lloyd Honeyghan loss. He was never the same again. He obviously got knocked out by Mike McCallum and what have you as well. He never managed to climb back to that spot of being number one pound for pound. So if a guy who is thought of that highly as being the best fighter in the whole of boxing can essentially be ruined by one stoppage defeat, who's to say it can't happen to AJ too? And I'm not just saying it was only the Honeyghan fight which ruined McCallum, which ruined Donald Curry, because the McCallum defeat was even more devastating. But, those losses really took it out of him mentally. It was never the same. But other fighters come back from devastating losses and they become greater than they were previous. So we'll see what happens with AJ. Drop your comments in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. How's this fight going to go? Will it be repeat? Will it be revenge? Is it too soon? Is AJ showing signs of psychological weakness? I certainly don't believe that AJ doesn't have nerves, because that's one thing he tried to come out with. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think AJ has recovered. I don't think you can recover that quickly. Not when you're as inexperienced as AJ is. I don't think you can recover that quickly psychologically. But sometimes a guy who hasn't recovered psychologically can still get through a fight and win. So we'll see what happens. But do I, hand on my heart, believe AJ has recovered psychologically from the first fight? No, I don't. I think he's still battling the demons. I think he's still battling self-doubt. And that's why in a previous video I said I'm actually leaning towards Andy Ruiz to beat AJ again, probably by stoppage in the rematch. That's why I'm leaning towards that. Not because I don't think AJ's got the ability. I think he does have the ability to beat Ruiz. I don't think beating Andy Ruiz is a particularly complicated thing to do. It's not necessarily easy, but it's not that complicated. He's got slow feet, fast hands. If you're 6'6" with a much longer reach. Stay on the outside, stay away, jab him, don't let him get close, don't throw more than 1 or 2 punches at a time. Be in good shape to go 12. That's what you have to do against him to beat him. It's not some mystery. He's not a Mike Tyson who can track you down really quick with real fast feet, duck under your punches and come up with... He's not like that. Andy Ruiz is actually pretty easy to hit from the outside. He tends to walk into shots, quite frequently. So it's not beyond AJ's physical capability to beat Ruiz. No. But the mental battle he's having to fight might actually be tougher than the physical battle. And that might be the decider, is whether he can win the mental battle or not. So, going to be fascinating, people. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.